Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Stevie Middleton and I'm a BBC Commissioner for a load of sport podcasts. I'm lucky to do that at the BBC because I get to work with leading journalists, experienced pundits and the biggest sports stars. Together we bring you untold stories and fascinating insights straight from the players' mouths. But the best thing about doing this at the BBC is our unique access to the sporting world. What that means is that we can bring you podcasts that create a real connection to dedicated sports fans across the UK. So if you like this podcast, head over to BBC Sounds where you'll find plenty more.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Liam McLeod, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, kickstarting your week with all the news, views and analysis that you need. As we record, it's the evening of Sunday the 28th of April, and it's still everything to play for in the Premiership.
Tavernier gets on the end of that one, fires the cross and it's Dessers! And Cyril Dessers does it again!
It's as you were at the top of the table after Celtic and Rangers both win. Also...
Oh, it's fabulous from James Forrest! What a strike from the edge of the box!
After his 2 goals against Dundee, is James Forrest making a late run for the Scotland squad and the European Championship? And...
Here's how it now to finish it off for Rangers!
We hear how Hearts and Rangers booked their places in the Women's Scottish Cup final.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
So, hello, and thanks very much for joining, and especially if you're subscribing with us here on the Scottish Football Podcast. Good to have you with us. I'm joined on this edition by the Dundee United striker and vice-captain Tony Watt, and the former Scotland striker Kenny Miller, who of course played with distinction at both sides in the Premiership title race just now. Kenny, firstly, I know you were in Paisley, as I was. You were working for telly, I was working for radio today. And we're going to go into this game in more detail in just a moment. But it was obviously hugely important for Rangers to win that match. Celtic dealt with the pressure in the later kickoff, but for Rangers, I mean, it was a difficult afternoon for them again, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. Again, I think I expected nothing less, to be honest with you, from St Mirren, who have had another wonderful season, and every time I watch them, like, you just know where you're going to get with them. You know, they're going to be well organised. So it was an exciting game. Rangers could have put it to bed at the end had it not been for an incredible bit of defending from Alex Gogic, who was very impressive yet again. So it was quite a good game. But going into it, Rangers needed 3 points. It's as simple as that. They couldn't afford to drop any more points in this title race, and they got the job done in the end.
If there was an award for clearance of the season, it goes to Gogic. There's no question about that. It was astonishing. Anyway, Tony, Dundee United, finally champions of the Championship. You've got the job done. The 0-0 draw in Airdrie, where you started your career, it was enough at the end of the day. How's everyone feeling in the wake of all that?
Yeah, everybody's buzzing. It's been a long season. It's when you're expected to win every week. Even you draw one game and there's a lot of critics and there's a lot of noise. But no, it's been fun. It's been an enjoyable season, but it's been full of stress, and we're glad we just got it over the line.
It has been. And as an East Coaster, let's get as many East Coast teams in the top flight as possible. We've got plenty to discuss with Tony and Kenny, and we're also going to hear from Amy Canavan about semi-final weekend in the Women's Scottish Cup. But before all that, as we always do, let's have a look at the latest Scottish football news. Well, Celtic maintained their 3-point lead at the summit of the Premiership with a 2-1 victory over Dundee at Dens. That came after Rangers overcame St Mirren, as we were hearing there, by the same scoreline earlier in the day in Paisley. Elsewhere in the Premiership, Livingston beat Ross County 2-0 to preserve their very slim survival hopes. There was little change in the bottom six though, with St Johnstone also losing to Hibs. The pressure's on for those two, that's for sure, St Johnstone and the Staggies. Aberdeen have leapfrogged Motherwell into 8th place, however, after they beat the Steelmen 1-0 at Pittodrie, while Kilmarnock and Hearts played out a goalless draw at Rugby Park. Scotland and Manchester United face an anxious wait on the fitness of Scott McTominay after the midfielder was taken off injured during the 1-1 draw with Burnley at Old Trafford on Saturday. And in the Women's Scottish Cup, Hearts are into their first ever final after a 3-0 win over fellow Edinburgh side Spartans at Hampden. They'll face Rangers on the 26th of May after they beat Celtic 2-0 on Saturday. Right, let's start At Dens, that game as we record finished just about an hour and 45 minutes ago. Tony, former Celtic striker, again, like Rangers earlier in the day, it was a massive win for Celtic. And James Forrest was the man to come up with the goods today. And how often have we said that down the years?
No, that's a line that we hear quite a lot, and I'm not surprised. I think when it comes to the big games, Brendan Rodgers should be looking at him a little bit more, because he always produces and he gets goals, he brings a bit of energy, and to be honest, this year Celtic's weakest positions have probably been out wide, and I think he can bring a bit of consistency for them, and he showed that today. 2 very, very good goals.
So it's a chance for James Forrest to score his and Celtic's second, burying it beyond John McCracken.
2 very, very good finishes, and it's like Kenny said about Rangers, it's just about 3 points. It's about breathing space, and if they can keep doing that, 4 more games to go, and I think he'll have a massive part to play in the next 4.
I mean, he's going to be hunting down Bobby Lennox as the most decorated Celtic player of all time. He's on 22 winners' medals. Bobby Lennox on 25. So he's only got 3 to go. You wouldn't put it past him to pick up another 2 this season. Brendan Rodgers said at one point, maybe a month or 2 ago, that James Forrest is the best winger that he's got at the club. Are you surprised, Tony, then, that your old teammate hasn't been getting more of an opportunity?
Yeah, I think that when he said it, it was there wasn't as much substance behind it as maybe times before under Brendan Rodgers. He wasn't showing it by obviously not picking him, but I don't think that's far off. Obviously, Maeda brings something differently, but if you're talking about quality, goals, a bit of energy, I think he's right up there. I don't think the other lads have maybe hit the ground running as of yet, the new signings, but I'd say him and Maeda are probably 2 best at the club, yeah.
I just wonder, Kenny, as well, and we'll look at the match itself in just a moment, but as far as the Scotland squad's concerned, I'm pretty sure that in his quiet moments, James Forrest kind of felt that his international career was over. But the one thing, albeit Scotland don't play with wingers, but the one thing Scotland miss is a little bit of pace, that little injection in the final third. If he continues this till the end of the season, plays his part in potentially winning the league, potentially winning the Scottish Cup, League and Cup double, could he force himself into the Euro squad, do you think?
I think when that kind of 26, the squad get extended to 26, what it did is I think it gives a lot of opportunity for all the managers of the nations that have qualified, that they can maybe throw something different at their squad. When you're looking at 23 again, you go with the 3 goalkeepers, maybe 8 defenders, maybe 8 midfielders and 4 strikers. What it does now, it allows you to maybe be a little bit more flexible with your selections. For me, with Scotland, we don't have any great pace in our team. We actually, when we play the system that has served us so well, again, that 3-4-2-1, that kind of 5-4-1 against the ball, there's no wingers in it, so if you needed to make a change and go a little bit more attacking and maybe take off a centre back, for instance, and maybe put on a winger like a Ryan Fraser or a James Forrest. These guys are different types of player. By the way, they're still clever enough that they can play inside in the pockets that the John McGinns and the Armstrongs and the Christie play in. But what they've got is, like you've seen James Forrest, and just going back on why he's not playing as much, it absolutely baffles me. I know Brendan Rodgers sees him every day in training, but when you hear Brendan making that statement about him being the best winger, you think, right, okay, your wingers have not really produced this season, so you wonder why James Forrest has not played more, because he comes on in the semi-final and makes such a difference, because he's so clever, a footballer, James, but he gets goals, he can create goals, he's getting on now, he's obviously 30 plus now, but he's still really direct, and he can get at the fullback and he can create things, so I found it amazing that he's not played more, and when he does play, I think he got a hat-trick earlier in the season, and then he comes into the game last week. And by the way, he was a game-changer last week. It was a game-changer for Celtic to get them back in front. And today, his 2 finishes are absolutely sensational. The first one is like, he's got a split second to think. And that's not even like an easy technique if you've got all the time in the world to think. But he just reacts to this in the back of the net, and then he goes and gets the decisive goal as well. So there's no reason why, with that extra 3 players getting added to Steve Clarke's squad, I think we should be looking at something different. I don't think we should just be looking for another centre-back, for instance, or another full-back, or another midfielder who can be tidy on the ball and be really comfortable. or another player that can play in the pockets like the Christie and the McGinns and the Armstrong. We should be looking at a different option. You know, pace for me would be, I know Jay, like I said, he's at the latter stage of his career now, but he's still got that injection over 5-10 yards. He's still got the ability and the know-how of when to use it and when to push it and when to be direct against a player. So I think he could force himself in it. Again, he was a really, really big player for Scotland at a moment. Again, scoring goals, creating goals, and just being someone like a good ball carrier. By a traditional winner. Give him the ball and let him go at people. And I think he showed that. So if he does keep in Celtic's team and he helps them deliver a league title or a potential double, I think he'll come into the conversation. Will he be on the plane? I'm not so sure. But we definitely, with that, like I said, with that extra little 3 bodies to add to the squad, I would be looking at a player at the top end of the pitch that can make a difference if we need to go and get a goal at the end of Hungary, at the end of Switzerland.
Hey, listen, the way the injuries are going just now, Kenny, cap number 70 might be on the horizon for you. You never know. You never know.
I've been keen for it, you never know. But you know, James might need to play fullback. He might need to play fullback.
I know. Who knows? Listen, Tony, as far as Celtic are concerned, it was all important they won the match. They're made to sweat a little bit with the Portales goal later on in the game. But to go to Dens, and given the season Dundee have had, top 6, great job that Tony Docherty's done to get the victory, to get the 3 points when the pressure was on, given what happened in Paisley earlier in the day. That's a good result for Brendan Rodgers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not an easy place to go. You've seen Rangers went up there and didn't win, and I think they've done really well. I think they are. Obviously, they've lost their captain and Joe Shaughnessy, but they're a stuffy team and they don't really give much away in terms of they're always in the games. They've pulled out good results. They've not really been far away from the conversation for Europe this year, and I think it's between them and St Mirren. Obviously, it's going to be a tight one. It's going to come down to the game between the both of them. But like Kenny said about St Mirren, you know what you're getting with Dundee, you know what you're getting with St Mirren, and they've both been really, really good this year.
It's going to be some game next week, isn't it, Kenny, when those two go head-to-head in the battle for 5th, which, as we know, European football has been unlocked for whoever finishes 5th in the Premiership this season. And those two will battle it out next week in what could be the key fixture.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I think, listening to Tony after the game today, he seemed he was really, obviously he was in the stands, he was serving the suspension, but he was really, really happy about what he seen from up there. You know, it is a different view sometimes when he's sitting, probably a bit anxious at times and a bit nervous, but what he said after that game is that he watched a really, really good team, and I've got to agree with him. I was at the game a few weeks back when they drew 0-0 with Rangers. I thought they were excellent on the night. They've got some really good players. They play some good football. They try and play in the right way. If they need to go more direct, they've got a forward in Bakayoko that can cause players a lot of problems. He definitely did that night for Connor Golson and John Suter. Today, maybe not quite as effective as what he was, but they've got for me, Luke McKibben's been one of the outstanding players over the course of the season. You know, not just totally for Dundee. I think he's been a really, really top player and probably just unfortunate not to make the team of the year. So it'll be a big, big game next week. 2 really good teams. You know, they've had wonderful seasons. 2 guys that probably have come into the conversation for manager of the year. So it could be the winner of that game actually does qualify for Europe. Obviously, if it's St Mirren, it gives them that little bit of gap. If Dundee can win, then it puts them just ahead. So it would be it's a really intriguing game next week. I'm sure it'll be a good one as well.
Of course, Kenny, the spell at Dens Park as well. So Celtic, big win for the champions, and they maintain their 3-point lead at the top of the table. That +5 goal difference as well, which could end up being crucial to the outcome of the title this season. So on to the action in Paisley, and Rangers eventually running out 2-1 winners over St Mirren. They were made to work for it though, Kenny, weren't they?
They were. And again, I said, expected nothing less from Stephen Robinson and his men. Really familiar look to them. You know, I think it's a sign a manager's really, really happy with the way they performed over the course of the season. That their system is always there. You know, it's the same way. I think there was 4 changes in his team, but again, they're familiar changes. It's not as if they're bringing someone in that's not performed at some point through the season. So it was always going to be a tough game. So, and they started so well. I think in terms of the first 10-15 minutes, so there was more action in the Rangers' final third than there was at the St Mirren defensive end. So Rangers then kind of battled away, and I would say when Hemming will be a little bit disappointed in the first goal, when he comes for that kind of deep corner, like he gets a hand on it but he doesn't really deflect. He doesn't deflect the ball in a different direction. He doesn't get it away for the goal. If anything, he actually slows it up perfectly for Diomande just to head it back across the goal. And then James Bolton was in a position where the ball might have been going in. If he didn't try and clear it, Cyril Dessers might have knocked it in.
Barisic with a deeper cross. Hemming's there and he gets a glove on it, but it's not convincing, and it's in the back of the net.
So he was in a real position. He ends up knocking into his own net, and it gives Rangers a lead, which I would say they deserved the lead. I think it was quite a level game, but St Mirren again responded well. Struck back within 4 minutes. Incredible header from Mandron.
Back to O'Hara, who crosses from deep. There's the header. It's off the post and in. Miko Mandron levels the game for St Mirren.
It really was. He showed good strength to kind of get the position on. Balogun just kind of nudged him, and then to get the power from that type of cross as well in the direction he go in off the inside of the post was but it's done more than deserved, to be honest with you. But it was that moment, just maybe 4 or 5 minutes before half time, and then the chance that fell with Bolton. I mean, Jack Butland's going the other way, and Bolton catches it sweet. Maybe hits it a little bit straight, but grace to the space, a big centre back going up there when the ball falls down there. I'm sure he's just trying to hit the target, but he catches it so sweet and it's flying into the goal, and Jack Butland just throws his right hand up.
Ball swung in. O'Hara's header. Jack Butland with another fantastic stop, and James Bolton can't believe it. Oh wow.
He's been the difference on so many occasions, Jack Butland. He's been a sensational signing right for the off. Not just in his performances, but how big an influence he is actually on the dressing room. I'm sure definitely on that back line that they'll feel real safe with him in the goal. So it was a big moment. That second half for me was a bit scrappy. Rangers again had a lot of control, but without really creating too many good chances. They get the goal again, another bit of mistake. Rangers could have went and got the third, like we've said. An incredible clearance from the breakaway.
Can Tom Lawrence finish this game for Rangers? Back onto the right foot, and it's an inspired block by Alex Gogic. Absolutely incredible.
I mean, Tom Lawrence he's away celebrating like James Bolton was in the first half, but it was an incredible bit of defending. But again, I must say, he was outstanding again today, Alex Gogic. I was at Celtic Park a couple of weeks ago and watched the game there, and St Mirren were competitive again in the first half of that game, and he was outstanding that day, not only in a defensive sense but stepping into the game and actually building attacks. Today he was outstanding again.
Tony won't be surprised about the fact Gogic went back there, of course, on loan at St Mirren last year. Yeah, Tony, if you hit 20 goals in a season, you've got to be happy with that, don't you? Dessers getting his 20th this campaign. He's been coming in for some serious criticism. I don't think he's the first Rangers striker, by the way, who's scored lots of goals and has come in for criticism. I think of Negri, I think of Flo. These guys perhaps came with big price tags. Dessers has too. But 20 goals, you've got to be happy with that. And you wouldn't be surprised if he gets up to 23, 24, 25 now.
Yeah, I think it's been a hard season for him in terms of getting going. I think they were playing, him and Danilo were maybe in and out, and they couldn't really get going. But since Clement's came in, he's been brilliant. I heard a lot of them say on commentary, I don't know if it was Kenny or Chris Boyd, that he misses too many chances. And I never noticed it before, but he does. He misses a lot of chances. But for me, if a striker gets all the chances, that's telltale sign that he's doing the right things, and he's put them away in the last couple of games, the big games. And no, I think he's had a really good season. If you take away the first part, maybe bedding in, he didn't really look fit. I think he had a bad injury last year, by all accounts, at the start of the year last year, and he's hitting his stride now, and he's scoring a lot of goals. And again, that's a massive goal today. It was a stuffy kind of game, as Kenny said. St Mirren are hard to break down, hard to beat, and Tavernier puts it in his head. To be fair, he couldn't miss it, but no, he looks a real deal for me. I just think if he can replicate that next season, then he'll be doing well for them.
Yeah, he was in Italy last season with Cremonese, having previously been at Feyenoord on loan from Genk, and that's when he was the top scorer in the Conference League when they got to the final, Kenny. But if you scored 20 goals for Rangers in a season, I would imagine you'd be absolutely delighted with that, and have been delighted with your goal hauls over the years at Ibrox. Has he proven himself yet do you think, given his exploits recently? And he's been the difference in the last 2 games, including the semi-final last week and then today.
He has. He's absolutely made the difference. I mean, 2 goals last week sending your team to a final, and then coming up with a really important goal after Rangers have not been great in the league. You know, hadn't won a league game in 3. I think it was only 1-1 in 5. And they needed to win that game today, and he's popped up with a big goal for his 20th of the season. The thing about him is there's just every player. I mean, again, I would have been delighted to hit 20 goals this season, but I'll be honest, I'd expected to be contributing a lot more to the play and the general build-up. And again, maybe because when I'm getting 20, my big partner was getting 30. It was a good kind of good partnership and a good foil for each other. I do think some of the criticism have been harsh on him, and the reason I think there's a lot more to come. You know, and I would expect a lot of his game to be better. Not just looking at his goals, because his goals, to get your 20 goals in your first season at Rangers, where you don't really know what the club's about, you don't really know what kind of scrutiny you're going to be under and what demands are going to be put on you. And he's got 20 goals. The reason I think it's been harsh is it has been directed a lot solely at him. You know, because of the missed chances or because of some of the untidy link-up play. The one thing, he works hard. You know, he works ever so hard for his team. Again, Philippe Clement was commenting on that again today. But it's always like right from the off, he's been the guy, you know, because he missed chances or because of certain things maybe not being quite up to the highest level in other areas of his game. But he's had to be the guy that's been out there every single week, Liam. You know, because Danilo's been injured for most of the season. Kamar Roof's been injured for a long time of the season. Silva's came in, and let's be honest, Silva's not number 9. You know, he wouldn't have got the goals that Cyril Dessers has got had he been playing every single week. So Dessers has had to continually put himself out there to be shot at, you know, and take all the criticism and get on the back on his shoulders and still go out and deal with performing, scoring goals, scoring big goals that we've seen in the last couple of weeks. So, listen, it was a difference down there a few months back as well, scoring a goal in the 1-0 winner. So, he has scored some big goals, and now that he's at 20, I'm like you, I think he'll finish with 22, 23 goals come the end of the season, which is a really, really good goal-scoring return for the first season as a striker at Rangers. All I'd say is, I think, if he can replicate those numbers again next year, that's if he's still there, by the way, that's if he's still in the building, but he can just improve the other side of his game. I really think he could turn the Rangers fans, because at this moment in time, he's asking, has he still got it to prove, or has he proven it? I still don't think he has. And I don't ever think you should feel that way anyway. I still always believe you should be striving to improve and become better. But there's things that he could be a lot better at. But his goal return this year has been very, very good. There's no getting away from that.
And just finally on this game on St Mirren, Tony, Stephen Robinson's got a lot of positives to take from that match today. I would imagine it was the same at Celtic Park a couple of weeks ago. And I go back to that match next week against Dundee. I don't know how many points those two will pick up against the clubs above them in the top 6 in the closing weeks of the season, closing games. Which means that this one becomes massive for European qualification for these two clubs who've gone so long without it.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, just looking at it, I think St Mirren's goal difference is a little bit better. I think they're a few goals ahead of Dundee and they're 2 points ahead, and if they can beat Dundee next week, then it'll probably be over. But the games against Kilmarnock and Hearts will probably be massive as well, because I think they'll both look at them and think we can beat them. I think Celtic and Rangers, when they're both going for the title, is more of a free hit. You're expecting, if they want to turn up, they can get the results. But I think if they can, obviously the game against each other is massive, but if they can look at Kilmarnock and Hearts and think, maybe I can get 3 or 4 points here, then I'm sure they'll give themselves a right good chance to get Europe.
Just before we wrap up with the two guys here, Tony, finally from you, what kind of impact can Dundee United make in the top flight next season?
Hopefully a big one. Hopefully we can... The year, obviously last year didn't go to plan, but I think there was a whole host of things, and I think since I joined till now, the building's totally different. Everything's changed. A lot of things in place. There's more structure in place. I think we even announced a head of recruitment the other day, and I think the manager's obviously straight to the point. There's no ifs or buts with him. So I think he'll be the right guy to lead us, and if we can replicate this year's form in a harder league, then I'm sure we can go and push for that top 6 spot, or just get up and give the fans something to cheer about and take it from there. That would be the main thing.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Right, before we leave you, we're going to have a chat with my colleague Amy Canavan about the Women's Scottish Cup semi-finals. Big weekend in the Scottish Cup, as it was in the men's game last week. And we will have a Rangers Heart of Midlothian final. Amy was at both semis at the National Stadium as Rangers beat Celtic, Hearts beat Spartans. We'll start with the game on the Saturday. 2-0 win for Rangers, who got a little bit of revenge, or perhaps a big bit of revenge, given what happened in the final of that tournament last season, Amy.
Yeah, I'd say so, Liam. I have to help enough revenge, and it certainly felt that way within the ground, with the fans and the player reaction. You know, in recent weeks as well, Celtic have leapfrogged Rangers in the league. Celtic are now top, and they arguably had the momentum coming into this, and I think a lot of people expected Celtic to perhaps can carry that in and continue their fantastic form in this competition. You know, they've won the Scottish Cup back to back, and as you rightly say, beaten Rangers last season in that final, where Rangers were really, really disappointing. It was Malky Thompson's last game, and it went out on kind of a damp note. It was far from the Rangers performance they would have hoped for. But while Saturday wasn't exactly the greatest of performances, the resilience was something to be applauded. It was a cagey game, a very cagey game. But you know, arguably Rangers were the better side throughout, and came up trumps right at the end with, it must be said, 2 cracking finishes actually.
They had to be patient though, didn't they?
They really did, in a way that, you know, Celtic didn't trouble Rangers too much. And in the same vein, you know, Rangers certainly had the better opportunities throughout the game, but there wasn't one where you went, right, okay, that was perhaps the chance. There was a few efforts that sort of flew a bit high, flew a bit wide, but again, from distance, there wasn't the sort of intricate play that's been so synonymous with both sides. You know, I think it's 294 goals between them they've scored in domestic competitions this season, which is just frankly frightening. The front lines of both oozing with talent, and you would almost expect that the big Hampden pitch would sort of, you know, play into those sort of players' hands, but it wasn't to quite be the case. And you mentioned that, you know, the men's Scottish Cup semi-finals of last weekend, the drama that happened last Saturday didn't quite develop again this Saturday, but nonetheless a cracking win for Rangers, and one that was very much deserved.
Sunday then, Hearts 3-0 win over Spartans. I think it's generally accepted that Hearts are the kind of, out with the 3 Glasgow clubs, are probably the best of the rest.
The fourth force, Liam, the fourth force.
Yes, I think that's how you say it. Yeah. It's not the most wonderful of terms. I'm sure they'll want to perhaps kick on at some point for sure, but a 3-0 win, and I think it was expected, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It's the same sort of way that, you know, we maybe say in the Scottish Premiership, Hearts have secured third or whatever it may be, sort of that best of the rest tag, but they certainly seem to have it in both disciplines right now. A very comfortable afternoon for Hearts at Hampden. Both sides first games at Hampden, so that there was that sort of occasion around it. I don't actually think the nerves were there for either side. I think from the off, Hearts were just the more dominant, which you would expect given the league positions, given the calibre of players on both sides. On no disrespect, you know, Hearts really do have players that you actually wouldn't be surprised if perhaps Celtic, Rangers or Glasgow City picked up a few of them. And they certainly have a pool of those players that have played for those clubs already. So they've got that sort of experience. Just a very commanding performance from Hearts. It took a wee while for them to get their goal, to get fully going. But once they did, Spartans didn't really have a sniff, and a real breath of fresh air with Jack Beasley's honesty just said, Hearts were just simply the better side and they deserved to win. The better side won. And sometimes, there are just those days. Spartans, it must be said, are still a part-time side. You've got all of that to deal with, and their main goal is still just preserving their top flight status, which I certainly think that they will. They're certainly hoping that they will, but with 5 games to go still, that is very much their priority.
And just finally, what kind of final can we expect between these two? Of course, Hearts picked up a pretty surprise victory over Rangers recently, so that'll probably give them a little bit of belief going into the final.
Yeah, it should be tasty. That's an eye-popping result the other week. You could sort of say that it's been coming in the way that Hearts have, they have taken points off Glasgow City and Celtic in the last few seasons, getting draws against both, but this was the one that they've sort of been waiting for, getting that one against a top 3 side. So, Eva Ullard sort of has a plan, and has a successful plan of how to beat Rangers. I think the tastiest factor of it all is that the sides actually meet on this coming Wednesday, live on BBC Alapa, 10:08 kickoff. But it's going to be a dress rehearsal. Both sides are going to be high on confidence given their performances this weekend, which both camps will be very happy with for very different reasons. So it's a very, very exciting final. You know, Rangers will go into heavy favourites, but Hearts, well, they do live for that underdog tag, and so far this season they've done all right with it.
Full coverage, of course, of both Scottish Cup finals across BBC Scotland, and if you've missed any of the action in the Scottish Premiership this weekend, you'll be able to see Sports Scene on the BBC iPlayer as well. My thanks to Amy there, as always, and thanks to Kenny Miller and Tony Watt, who joined us a bit earlier. Time to wrap things up for now, though. Remember, we publish new episodes every weekday, so you'll get your daily dose of Scottish football bright and early. We will see you for Tuesday's edition of the Scottish Football Podcast. For now, bye-bye.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.